What's up, everyone? This is part 3 of our interview with Pratik Naik, and we're talking retouch. In this part, we want to talk about tools. So tools of the trade, what you use, and let's start first with, well, let's just go to software. What software are you typically using for, do you do a lot of raw editing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So most of the times, they give me the raw files, essentially. Photographers will give me the raw files. And that's kind of where my magic initially happens.
Okay.
Is how I interpret the raw file and how I get the most information out of it.
And are you using CaptureOne? Are you using Lightroom? What are you using for your raw files?
I usually, yeah, good point. It captures after that. I wonder why. No, it's I will primarily use Photoshop for camera raw. Keep my camera updated. I actually love Lightroom as well because of batch processing and all that.
Yeah.
You can put out 5 or 6 raw files in a batch there and hit them out from there. Or as you mentioned, CaptureOne, because a lot of people will send me like IQ files from phase 1, their digital backs, or I'll have to use Focus sometimes because shooting Hasselblad, sometimes they're proprietary, may make a difference. So I keep all the systems up to date from all aspects to make sure I have everything, because whenever Photoshop updates their raw, somebody out there buys the camera right away and sends me the file.
Yeah,
I'm like,
for sure.
it just came out and I have the file already, so I have to update. So I have to continue updating.
You're like literally waiting for the update to be able to.
Yeah, I'm like, let's go.
Bring it done. Now, I do have a question about CaptureOne, and this is kind of do you remember Simpsons? You watch Simpsons?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Way back, there was an episode where Homer built a car for his brother's car company.
Oh God, yeah, I see where this is going.
And he was like, just put everything you want into this car.
Right.
Anyway, the car ends up being this monstrosity that ends up making his brother's company go bankrupt.
I wanted that car.
It was actually pretty cool. It had like 8 horns or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I think of CaptureOne, I almost think of that in that this software literally has every single thing I would possibly want in a raw editor.
Yeah.
It does a great job. We actually have a review of it coming up where we're going to show it does do a better job of processing raw files than Lightroom or Aperture or anything else. And we're actually able to prove that in the way that it recovers details and stuff.
Sure.
But it's an absolute train wreck of like an interface.
Right.
It's just like, it's everything you could possibly want with no easy way of getting there, like essentially. I don't know if that's your experience, but...
I was with you when I started Lightroom as well, doing photography. And when I went to CaptureOne, I kind of didn't know everything was intuitively. So I had to fiddle around a lot, like especially exporting things. So for example, if I did a setting and export it out, it has its own little format, not XMPs. It has a little settings file that's different, proprietary to CaptureOne. So I had to basically learn it again. But you're right, it had a lot of awesome things, but you just had to go and like
find it
for a day, go and learn everything. So I definitely understand where you're coming from.
So, okay. So we use basically these different various programs for your raw editing. I assume Photoshop is your primary. Well, there's nothing else.
Well, actually, I use Paint a lot.
You use Paint?
Just go get Paint.
Critique everybody.
Paint, that's all you need. That's all you need.
Microsoft Paint. That is how good he is. What about are you using any additional plugins or anything for your software? Is there anything that you find particularly useful?
No, I don't use Nix or I don't use anything of that nature. Especially for me, because everything for me is customized. So when a client does come, it is my own individual recipe, so to speak.
Sure.
It isn't a Nix filter or whatever have you. And so I do have actions, for example, of tasks like closing, saving, exporting, sharpening, and I'll put it to the side. And every time you do something, I'll go through it. But as far as those plugins, I won't use anything.
I like that because I find that generally those plugins, while they're cool if you just want a quick effect, they don't offer a lot of control, and you get the best. You get the best looks from your images by doing it yourself and customizing it for each image.
Yeah, and also the plugins are based on the Photoshop engine, so if you kind of know what it's doing, you can kind of do it on your own anyway. Yeah. So just again that mentality of don't look at tutorials for the sake of tutorials, look at it for the sake of the tools and what it does. Backtrack and think for yourself, and you'll be able to see that I can actually figure this out if I try it out. And once you do, you can kind of unlock basically the whole plugin in a sense.
Totally. Okay, so let's talk now about, we talked about software tools. How about hardware tools? Are you Windows or Mac?
You're putting me under the bus here. I can.
I know. I want the most amount of flaming comments.
You just
underneath this
lost.
video.
You're about to lose half your viewers. No. I actually have to use both. Like I said, for my like going to talking about phase one and Lightroom stuff. I have to know both systems. I started on the PC end because I was a gamer. And when you showed up to a gaming convention with a Mac, you're pretty much looked at like
laughed at.
Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, this is a gaming convention. You can't do stuff like that on a Mac yet. And so I went through PCs just because I thought that was the way to go. Now when I jumped into photography and they're like, what are you doing with PCs? You're retarded. Like, you really shouldn't be using a PC to edit photos. And then I thought like, wait a second, guys, there has to be a medium here. Like, why can't you do both on both ends?
Yeah.
And so I think it really boils down to preference, because what happens is, it's not like Linux where it's just completely user editable, but you have Photoshop, you have your folders, you have your hard drive, you have your root directories, to me it felt so similar. The difference was the way it handled, how stable it was based on your computer, because I've seen Macs crash, I've seen PCs crash, and this is in Windows 98 where it still crashes.
See,
this is 2013. This is not
we have proof. Everybody thinks that I say my Mac crashes and they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It crashed.
Yeah.
See, there's by the mouth of two.
Yeah.
You've heard it.
And I see both of them have problems. So, and what used to happen was, PCs had different, components before. So when you put those together, it was more easy to crash. And Windows is a sense where it's like kind of being like in America, where you have all this freedom to do things.
Yeah.
You're not restricted like, oh, you can't access this because whatever. And so people would go and do their stupid things and they would crash the systems because they didn't have any self-control. And Mac did a good job of stabilizing the whole thing. And, it's very foolproof of, doing stuff. But nowadays, things are so much more complicated that you see things crash all the time. So I use both. And for training purposes, I use Macs to train on, because a lot of people use Macs, and at home I'll use PCs because I can keep upgrading them at a cheaper cost.
Yeah.
And they both can run both operating systems. So there's no problem either way.
Interesting. We're almost the exact same.
Yeah, awesome.
I think for my personal, I love my Mac for all my, like when I'm not working, basically, my Mac is awesome.
It's such an easy thing to use. Just push it up and
for presenting, for travel, anytime I'm in front of people, I love having my Mac because it's just such a better machine to be presenting with and to be showing people. I don't have to worry about the blue screen of death as much.
I've never seen a blue screen of death.
There isn't one on the Mac. Like I always tell people,
there's a white screen of the circle.
I'm like, it just kicks you out of the program. I'm like, that's
it makes it nice. It's like the nice way of telling you it crashed. It's like, please restart, and there's a blank folder there. It's a nice way.
So I love my Mac for that. When I'm working, I'm generally working on my PC too. So
the bottom line is, use whatever you like to use.
Exactly.
And it's all about, is it doing the job for you?
But I assume that anyone that's going to leave a flaming comment hasn't gotten to this part in the video.
Yes, please.
And so they already have their comment written and done below.
Oh, well, it's okay. They'll come back.
But okay, so it is a matter of choice. Now, other pieces of hardware, you're generally retouching with a pen tablet, a Wacom. What are you using? I
do use a Wacom because it is much more efficient for me. I come from art background, so I'm used to the pen, paper, ordeal. But it is very common where I see people that don't get used to it. I've had a couple of friends buy it, and I told them, if you're going to buy it, keep in mind you may never get used to this. Yeah. It's just a matter of fact, and I've seen that happen constantly. There's like statistics when you start asking a lot of people, like 3,000, 4,000 people. Eventually, you get a big number of statistic that says like 20 to 30 to 40% of people won't get used to it, and some people do. And
I'm one of the people that didn't get used to it.
Yeah,
I find myself quicker retouching with my mouse.
Yeah, it's nothing to be ashamed of, because people are like, they don't comment. They don't comment.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, I'm not judging you, Pi. Don't worry about that. I'm not judging you, because it's fine either way. It's just that it's much faster if you do get used to it. That's all I think it is. More efficient, quicker. But
I know one thing. One thing that's impossible to mimic on a mouse is basically those smooth pen strokes. Like when I watch some of your videos and you're doing like really soft, subtle pen strokes along cheek lines and along those lines, those are difficult to do.
Definitely.
With a mouse. So for that, I would definitely. I have a Wacom. I just don't. It usually stays.
I'll take it away from you.
Thanks. Which one are you using right now? By the way, have you used the Cintiqs or?
I have used the Cintiqs. I've used actually all lines. I personally prefer the Infos line just because. For one of the reasons, I'm sitting at my desk about like 9 to 10 hours a day on average, and so what happens is with a Cintiq, you do have to move your hand a lot throughout the day, and it is an exercise.
Yeah.
So, and you know, 1 or 2 hours, it's fine. But for me, I needed something that was much faster. I'm all about efficiency because that's how I save my time and save my clients money, is how fast I can get this done in. Because even though the results are comparably good to others, they want to see how much cheaper it is, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, with the Intuos, I can get a smaller tablet and get from corner to corner much quicker. And so I don't have strain on my arm. I don't have like, you know, arthritis or anything like that. I'm just laid back, working in my chair, and it's much easier for me. And secondly, is my hand doesn't get in the way of the image because I like to have the peripheral vision of the whole image.
Sure, sure.
So those two things in mind, I prefer.
That would be a little bit tough if it's constantly like
in your fit. Yeah, like you gotta make sure. Yeah, definitely. So, and people prefer the Cintiq for their reasons as well, because they do like the hands-on organic feel of having like the almost realistic feel of paper pen type thing.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance myself to use the Cintiq. I would think for the exact same reason for retouch, it'd be a little bit irritating. I think it'd be great for like 3D modeling, where you could like, you know, really, you know, do that kind of stuff. But for having your hand constantly on the screen, that'd be a little bit
it is
tiresome and
and it gets all greasy and stuff, and you don't deal with that. But it's a great product though. Like playing with them, they were fantastic to play with. Yeah, so much fun though.
Now, you mentioned that you sit at your computer for 9 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And there was someone that commented on your Facebook page, and I wanted to actually ask. I thought it was a great comment as well, but it sounds silly. But dude, this stuff is important.
Yeah.
What kind of chair and desk do you use? I mean, do you have like a Herman Miller Aeron? Like, what are you using?
I'm in an all white room with metal and white chair. No. I you know, I'm all about comfort.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I illustrate. Is I see a lot of photographers work in the studio, but they'll use like a metal chair or something that's really hard on your back.
It's really tough on your back,
yeah. Get that chair out of there first of all. Get a nice chair. I'm not brand specific or anything, but you know, if it's good for ergonomics, like soft leather chairs are great, or firm leather chairs depending on your input, and just something that's good back support because you're going to be there all day, you know? So make sure you're comfortable in that chair.
And are you sitting pretty high or are you sitting very low?
So for example, like if my keyboard was here, my arms would be level with the keyboard and the actual tablet.
Okay.
So it is perfectly in line. And I'm essentially not moving my hands very much because even my keyboard shortcuts, I'll put shortcuts on there for like my common tools or whatever have you, or you know, if it's by default or whatever, you can program it. And so that's basically my workflow. Like I'll have a nice chair. My screen's a 27-inch NEC screen because it is like one of the best, you know, screens for color gamut that you can get for their price range.
Do you know what specific model it is?
Yeah, it's a multi-sync.
Okay.
And essentially the reason I got that over like an Apple Cinema display is cinema displays are very hard to first of all calibrate for print because they do come out a little bright, especially if you bring your luminance down, for example. That's just my personal finding. Maybe it's different, maybe there are workarounds, but because I don't do print so much. Yeah. But it's just stuff that, you know, my clients have told me. And secondly, it doesn't have a wide color gamut. And Apple doesn't, you know, just publicly put it out there, but you know, numbers do eventually start coming out, and it lists things about screens. So it's good to get a really nice screen. I think that's a huge importance, rather than just getting the iMac where everything just built into one. Yeah.
I love screens too. I actually used to have a wide gamut NAC. I didn't realize that they were still producing a lot of like.
Oh yeah.
We use now the Asus has a great line of
they do
of IPS displays. Also Dell. A lot of them get these displays. I mean, the actual unit's the same from the manufacturer, but we've had the same experience with the Apple Cinema ones where we can't. They're a little bit tougher to calibrate depending on which ones you have and getting them to print exactly right. So
and they're always glossy.
Yeah, they are.
So it's very hard to
very high contrast when you print.
Even in shadows, or even if you're working in lighter shadows, you still get issues with interference with your reflection. And I don't want to see myself all day. You know, like,
you're a handsome man.
I'm retouching other people enough all day. I don't want to mentally keep on.
Ooh, that's myself again. That's nice. You find that you're like retouching parts of your own face
it's
over
like,
something.
You know, I'm like overlapping other people's faces. And like, no, I don't want to do that.
So we talk about hardware and software. Now you mentioned kind of the keyboard shortcuts that you're typically using. What are maybe the common tools that you're using inside of Photoshop? Like let's say the 5 most common. Well, I don't want to say 5. Let's say 3 most common.
Top 5. Limit to 5. No more for you guys this time. Most of my time is either healing or cloning. Number 1, that's my first rule. Healing and cloning should be imperative and done right. Don't be lazy on it because those steps add on each other.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you need to make sure you're dodging burning a lot. because if you're, evening out transitions, making the skin look really nice, that's really important to be in. So I'll have those keys there, especially my hand tool, because you have to move your picture
Not like
around.
your actual hand,
Yeah.
but the Photoshop
The real
hand tool.
the hand tool.
I've never heard someone refer to my hand as a tool like that.
It is a tool.
The Photoshop hand tool.
Yeah. We won't go there in this episode.
So, okay. So these are the 5 tools. Now, the shortcuts that you're using, are they generally for these tools, or are they for other things too that you're using?
So essentially they'll be like my shortcuts. So I'll program a key for, saving and stuff from my action. But it is mostly for my tools because that is what I'm in most of the time. And then the rest is understanding shortcuts like, Command J duplicates the layer, Control J, and things like that, and flattening and saving. And just knowing those quick things will really expedite time. Because even if you think about it, every time you save even a few seconds for every minute, it really adds up. It could be an hour from a 10-hour day.
Yeah, no,
so
totally.
Think about it. It really adds up fast.
And you covered that. Like in your workshops, you actually go through and cover workflow in detail. And,
absolutely. I cover everything to help a photographer in a photographer mindset retouch a picture from start to finish in the fastest way possible, but making sure the results are consistent and non-compromising. So we don't take shortcuts, but we do make sure you get the best results in the fastest way possible. Like I haven't seen anything out there that's this fast, because when I show people that even have a 10-year knowledge of Photoshop that started from Photoshop 1, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing it so differently and I didn't think about it this way. So it goes back to the discovering process about if you come from another industry and not just retouching, what can you bring into the field that can help other people? That's
awesome. Now, one last thing I wanted to ask, which we didn't cover when we were talking about displays, is what are you actually using to calibrate your displays?
Sure. So since I use the NEC line, they have their NEC multi-sync calibrator that comes with it. So it's based on the hardware. So it's actually looking at the internal LUT. So it's making sure that your colors are accurate from whites to sorry, not your colors, but your whites and blacks are perfect, white and black. And also make sure all your shades and colors and tints and tones, everything's just perfect.
Oh, that's awesome. Does that come with that display, or is it?
Yeah, there's a package you can actually buy.
Oh,
so it's additional, or you can also buy it separate if you've already bought your display.
Awesome. All right, so awesome. We've covered kind of the hardware, the different tools that you're using, software, everything like that. So we're going to go on into the next part in the series where we're going to cover the do's and don'ts of retouching. And we're also going to get to some of the user questions as well. So
awesome.
We'll see you guys in that video.